be, if you said something outrageous, that was the end of your candidacy. Now it only gets repeated. And then you got people going, well, I don't know why he said that. Here, let me try to spin that for you, right? You know, what he really meant to say was he doesn't hate all people of that fill in the blank. You know, and yet he, and it's not, the media doesn't give him a pass. They're going, what's going on? Because it's a new politics. Because what used to be the rules don't seem to apply. And don't think that Donald Trump is the last. I think he's the first of celebrity candidates coming in and attempting to run. This is exactly the kind of thing that the Electoral College was built to stop, by the way. So, you know, just saying. The political outsiders can do it. The last political outsider to get a nomination was Wendell Willkie, who probably is, you know, a Jeopardy question. He was a businessman. It was FDR's third term. We were leaning towards war. No one wanted to run against Roosevelt except maybe Thomas Dewey from New York, and most of the other Republicans couldn't stand him. So, oh sure, Wendell Willkie. And of course he lost. Handily. Clinton and Trump have incredibly high unfavorable ratings for major party candidates. And again, let's factor in, maybe for Clinton up here, it could be a little residual misogyny, but there's also just the fact that some Democrats don't love the Clintons. They didn't love the Clintons in the 90s. And they don't love the Clintons today. And then of course Donald Trump, you know, his favorable rating is 38%. So the spread is 20 points. Typically, this guy should not be as successful as he has been and may be in November because of this kind of spread. Okay, traditional GOP versus Trump. Trump is remaking the Republican Party. He will be the de facto head of the Republican Party going forward, whether he wins or loses. Globalism, free trade, laissez-faire capital, that's traditional GOP. Trump, protectionism and regulation if American companies want to go overseas. Robust foreign policy, right? The neoconservatives who wanted to go remake the world in our image, out. Isolationism, build a wall, in. Social and cultural conservatives and evangelicals. Trump's social views are mixed. He's definitely not a conservative, even though all the conservative talk show hosts keep talking him up. And he's not an evangelical. So, small government to liberate. He doesn't care. He doesn't want small government to liberate the powerful. He alone, I alone, he said, can make these changes. He's smarter. Yes, he did. That's not a quote. I decided to do a shorthand there. But essentially, he calls most people in government idiots, right? I mean, essentially, they're not smart enough. I can't believe this administration. I can't believe that. You know, I will do it smarter. I will get the smartest people. They will listen to me, and we'll get it done. So the GOP is going to be very different going forward. Even if he loses, I can see a civil war between the Ted Cruz faction and the John Kasich faction over what went wrong. And the moderates will be saying, well, see, he was too whatever. And the social conservatives will be, no, he wasn't conservative enough. Trump is driving away the college-educated married Republican voter. Democrats own women voters, but they don't own white married women who have always had a majority of votes for the Republican Party. They're being driven away by Donald Trump. Do they stay home, which would be a shame, because that means they have decided not to participate in our election? Or do they vote for a third-party candidate? What do they do? Do they go and not vote for president and vote for other down ballot spots? Trump is destroying the centrist consensus builders. He repudiates them. He's opposed by all those people we talked about. And he's creating a kind of white identity politics. Now, the Republican Party has been very white for a number of years. But now the grievances, the social grievances, this feeling that somehow, look, Make America Great Again is seen by many as a kind of code for Make America White Again. And if you look at the people that support him, that often seems to be the case. So Clinton wisely tried to pick a vice president who could reach out to those white males and Catholic swing voters. She's still not closing the gap with millennials, and it turns out she's losing the enthusiasm among African Americans and Hispanic voters. If they stay home, that could have a tremendous effect. Not in New York or California, but in those swing states where every vote may count, particularly Ohio. Trump tried to reach out to the conservatives. Mike Pence, he did a religious freedom law in Indiana that you probably remember reading about, that many saw as a threat to the liberties of LGBT community. I don't know how successful, Mike Pence is about as exciting as a glass of milk. I don't, warm milk, yeah. Well, so, and interesting, we used to use party conventions to reintroduce the candidate. We bring in party leaders and ex-presidents to say some nice things. Look, the people that supported Trump were Trumps. And that concerns me because there seems to be this kind of sense of, who does he listen to? My family. Who gives me advice? My family. We don't live in a monarchy, right? We live in a democracy. You should listen to people outside of your family group. They know you well, and apparently, though, if your name is Trump, you know the score. So that was kind of. On the other hand, look, Clinton had First Lady Michelle Obama, who wowed everyone. She had, great Elizabeth Warren. Bernie Sanders spoke on her behalf. But Ted Cruz spoke at the Republican convention and would not endorse. He got booed off the stage for not endorsing Donald Trump. But again, Ted Cruz is a Republican, and Donald Trump is not. So, what's it going to look like under Donald Trump? Ooh, exciting. Well, here's elements of style. Birther movement. First, spread something about your enemy that is a mythical belief system. Whoa, sorry. Whoa, did I touch that again? Yipes! Yeah, I tried the back button before we started, so I know that doesn't work on the mouse. So, the birther movement, as you know, was one of the very early ways. Wow, I really got excited there. Sorry. I was like, whoa, talking about that Trump guy, right? All right, thank you. Sorry about that. All right, so again, so basically undercut the authenticity of Barack Obama or your political enemies. And he did that. He comes up with nicknames for people, lying Ted Cruz and such. Nativist and anti-immigrant policies. His announcement, he denounced Mexico for sending in criminals, basically smearing the entire Mexican people. He's isolationist. He's talked about, what do we need NATO for? So no collective security. Well, thank you, Eisenhower and others. Protectionist trade policies. Doesn't care how big or small the government is. Pseudo-democratic tax policies and pseudo-democratic healthcare policies, because he just announced, he talked about family leave for maternity leave, for paid maternity leave for women. He doesn't know how he's going to pay for that exactly. He thought that we could close the fraud on unemployment. Not a lot of fraud in the unemployment industry, there's maybe 10%, and not a lot of money. And by the way, the state's paying for that too. So, yeah, he's passing the buck. Good job. But again, that's exactly the kind of thing that the old Republican Party would, first of all, not have embraced, and second of all, any kind of taxes. Read my lips, right? No new taxes. There are some Trumpites in the election, or the electorate. People who supported Trump, but also people who, frankly, I think would like to be Trump and would like to emulate him. There were even some people in primaries who tried to challenge, Paul Ryan, for example, who came out of this Trump cloth. We call them Trumpites. That's a term that's getting some play. But, you know, look, if you know Carl Palladino, if you know Chris Collins, you know the kind of invective and the kind of disposition they have in politics. Chris Christie or Paul LePage has been, they were talking about impeaching him because he got mad at a legislator, called him on the phone and should have heard the terrible things that he said. Look, we were shocked when we found out that Nixon swore when those tapes came out. Okay, that's how naive we were back in the day, right? Richard Nixon uses the F-bomb? What? Shocking. It didn't happen. So what is Hillary going to do? Well, Hillary's got to reach out to the Green Party because if she's pulling, Jill Stein's pulling 3% or more, you got to do more to draw those voters into the Democratic Party. Elizabeth Warren has already declared that she's going to have a list of potential members of the Clinton cabinet who will be not from Wall Street should Clinton try to proffer up people that are. She will do a filibuster. She will do anything. She's a Democrat. And she's already said more progressive politics. So Hillary Clinton is going to have to go more progressive. And Bernie Sanders is already trying to create an organization to keep his momentum, to keep his ideas alive. That's going to come back. If Hillary gets elected and she wants to get re-elected, she's going to have to square off. She could face a primary battle as a sitting president. And everyone knows that doesn't help. We were talking about Jimmy Carter before that, you know. You don't want to have a major primary battle with Ted Kennedy in 1980 because that tends to harm you irreparably going in. So looking ahead, what can you look forward to? The debate! Yay! Can't wait! Woo! There will be a debate party here at Nazareth College for the students. Can't wait to see how that turns out. Yes. Will there be alcohol? Yeah. Sadly, we don't want fisticuffs, so we'll maybe warm up. All right. Traditional map. Democrats begin, and on this map they're red. Democrats begin usually with an electoral advantage. Republicans have a tougher path to the White House. These are your traditional swing states, and still tend to be one way or the other. We're going to find out. But noticing in the upper Midwest, Donald Trump had once bragged he was going to make a play for New York and some other places, but he really hasn't. He doesn't have an organization. He's basically Ubered out his political campaign. He's called in the GOP, and they're doing everything for him. Presidential preference. All right, look. Clinton up 43, Trump 37, Johnson 9, not sure 8. All right, why are people voting? They're voting against Trump. They're voting against Clinton. Ah, look at that. So this is September. Interesting. Those numbers haven't changed that much since May. But again, Obama's approval rating. Top concerns for Trump: temperament, language, praise for veterans. Oh, okay, anyway, private email. Ouch. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's just. I have no words. All right. So in 2012, look. This is how it turned out. 47% Romney, 51% for Obama. And the reason I do this is I want to point out, bellwether, Ohio. Ohio tends to vote almost perfectly like the rest of the country. Keep your eye on Ohio. If you're really passionate about this election, get on a bus and go knock on doors in Ohio. All right? That's going to be a battleground state because of all of the working class white men from the auto industry who helped support Obama against Romney in 2012 may switch and support Trump. All right? So, and again, look at how, you know, this tends to be, the urban areas tend to vote for the Democrats and the rural areas, country areas, for Republicans. We expect that to be the same. Down ballot. And I'm checking the time because you guys don't want to be here all night. Checking the time. Will Trump hurt Republican congressional races? Look, the Senate could flip. The Senate could go to the Democrats. That would make a huge difference in politics. Maybe we can get a Supreme Court justice. Wow. Novel idea. I'd like to see that. I suspect if Hillary wins, it's going to be a very, very liberal Supreme Court justice. shall we say, a more moderate public. But look at, as we look at the toss-up states here in yellow, some of the toss-up states, these are all sort of Republican areas. It could easily see a flip. Some are leaning towards Republicans, right? But of course, they could also flip as well. So these are the Senate races to watch. Now, I know you didn't know this, but there's a Senate race in New York. It's going to be Chuck Schumer running against Wendy Long. Wendy Long, ring a bell? She ran against Kirsten Gillibrand. Remember? She's the sacrificial lamb of the Republican Party. Yeah, poor Wendy. Look, I suspect Chuck's gonna just do very, very well. And then Harry Reid is retired. We're expecting him to be the leader of the Senate, the Democrats in the Senate. See, there I am giving it away, thinking that the Republicans are gonna lose the Senate. What about down, right? Enthusiasm is an issue. Clinton's enthusiasm gap. I mean, people who like Trump really like Trump. People who like Clinton hate Trump. Anyway, so that may be the difference in getting people to vote. You want to vote for something, not always against something. So that is from September 16, 2016. And look, this can harm people. They might stay home. And we have some interesting congressional races right here that could go one way or the other. Look, back in 2012, Tom Reed nearly lost the election because it was a presidential year. Democrats came out and nearly toppled Tom Reed from his congressional seat. You're like, what? No one saw that coming. This time around, he's got a slightly more formidable opponent. I noticed Tom Reed huddled up with Paul Ryan a couple of weeks ago out here in Pittsburgh, trying to shore up that suburban white Republican vote. Suburban white Republicans, especially in places like New York, don't really love Donald Trump that much. So Reid is quietly trying to raise money and secure his seat. This seat, if you know anything about the Syracuse seat, those of you who follow politics, that's everybody here. This seat's gone back and forth, back and forth. It's like a seesaw. It's Democrats to win this time around because, again, we expect turnout to be much higher. But if Clinton doesn't excite people, it could stay in Katko's hand. Oh, look! Hi. I think we know these people. Yeah, if you close your eyes, yep, I've seen this before. Yes, we did this a couple years ago, and Mark Cassini nearly toppled Louis. Nobody expected that, because he wouldn't run negative ads, which Maggie Brooks' team did, and it blew back in her face. It was a dumb idea. You can't redefine Louise. Everyone knows her. Maybe you love her, maybe you don't, but you know who she is, right? Negative ads work best if you don't know the candidate. Now, yeah, CD has been getting out. We'll see. Again, it's a Democrat surge, very likely, with the presidency. So we expect Louise to hang on to her seat, but you never know. And then, over here, look, Chris Commons. Yay. Look at how big that area is. And again, this seat has gone a little bit back and forth. Kathy Hochul, who's now lieutenant governor, was once the representative from this area. So it could go one way or the other. And then control the New York State Senate. Yeah, New York State Senate actually has fewer Republicans. But there are some independent Democrats who actually caucus with the Republicans that keep them structurally in control of that. A couple of seats moving away, though, could end that quite quickly. And we've got the 54th Senate seat that's an open seat. There's Olio's seat. Rich Funky is running against Rich Funky. I think Rich is going to win. Because the Democrat got knocked off the ballot. And then the Senate District 56, Joe Brock is running against Nancy Lewis. And Joe, as you know, used to be a Democrat and then became a Republican. And yeah, I don't think he's going to lose that seat. Local assembly seats, right? Joe Arrigo was appointed because the voters decided that Rich Mill was not sufficiently conservative enough for that district, and they voted for Mr. Nojay. Barbara Baer was mounting an interesting campaign, and had they split the ticket a little bit, that might have helped her. But again, there's a seat that's up. And then the 138th, Harry Bronson beat back Rachel Barnhart. And then Zink won the primary by 3 votes. On election night, we thought Vasquez was the winner by 6 votes, and then we counted the absentee ballots, and it turned out, oops, it's Zink. So again, that's an interesting seat, only because if you ever listen to the returns that night, they're always late coming in, and you're like, where's it going to go? Where's it going to go? Oh. But very likely Harry Bronson's going to do well. Family Court, got several students that have worked for Maritza, and of course Stacy Romeo is also running. And then county clerk, yeah, Bello against Rosie. So this will be an interesting effect, depending on who comes out. And then we've got local elections. Annabella has his supervisor's placement in Irondequoit. We've got a council seat in Gates, Irondequoit, Parma, Pittsford. You got some local justices as well. So sadly, the presidential election can affect down ballot races, either by people staying home because of Trump or lack of enthusiasm for Clinton. But we would like to see more people involved locally. So get the word out, spread the word to your friends, get your friends registered if they're not already. October 14th is a deadline. And then just do voter education. League of Women Voters does a great job and certainly wants to get all the candidates' information out so that they can be unbiased and bring it to the attention of the public. There are so many people that don't know where to turn, and they Google, and that's not going to help. You need to go to a news agency or some other authoritative body. So that's what I have to say about this coming election. I'm going to turn it over to the audience for questions.
Sorry I can't stand up. I'm on a walker back here. I had a couple of things I wanted to ask you. First of all, in terms of the role of the media, do you think the media in this particular election cycle has been unduly, examining every in and out and up and down of the candidates? Or do you think it follows a usual trend? That's the first question. The second question is, when you had your list of Trumpites or Trumpism, I didn't happen to see the word bigotry or race hatred there. Would you consider including one or both of those terms in that list?
Fair questions. I'll take the easy one, the media one, and knowing some Trump supporters, right? There are some people like David Duke and others who have come out in favor of Mr. Trump, and clearly we think that his policies touch at, again, this sense of people who feel that somehow white power has to be restored. If you talk to people who are non-white, they'll tell you it's never gone away. But, and recently there was an incident here in Pittsburgh, I think. Somebody was leaving website messages or something around and people were seeing flyers. So clearly I think Mr. Trump may have stirred up a number of those individuals who have that mentality. And look, I'm going to come off as an elitist here, and I'm not. But see, this is what I think of the value of a college education, and that a lot of people who who follow Mr. Trump don't have a college education. It's not that everybody should go to college, but one of the things you should get out of college is an awareness of the big picture, and that you're not the center of the universe, and by the way, there's people different from you, and that's fine. And that kind of liberal arts education is one of the things that I do wish more of his followers had. The media question. Look, the Wall Street Journal absolutely hates Donald Trump. They have done everything they could to investigate him, to talk about this fraud or that shenanigan. Eric Schneiderman is out, going to investigate Mr. Trump, and there's been New York Times, Washington Post has investigated. The Wall Street Journal also, by the way, doesn't like Hillary Clinton. So they have thoroughly vetted Hillary Clinton, especially on their opinion pages. Sadly, not many people are probably reading that. They're probably going to Facebook or some other social media site. So I think the information on both candidates is out there, questioning some of their decision makings, some of their judgment calls, to be nice about it. Again, they both have very high negatives, and that's because there's a certain suspicion of both by the general public. But I don't want to fault the media here. Again, the media does what it does, but people decide, I'm going to watch only Fox News, or I'm only going to watch MSNBC, or I'm only going to go here, I'm only going to look at the headlines, and then I'm going to think that's the story. People don't drill down deeper. And the stories, these are complex stories. Politics is complex. Access shouldn't be. We maybe always understand, but we should not always fault the media because they're not doing the job that we want to do. Talk to your friends. Talk to them. Don't chat. One of the things that we found is sad that Democrats who talk to Republicans report being very stressed every time they have a conversation, and the same thing Republicans to Democrats, right? Yes, it may be stressful to talk to a friend who believes differently from you, but conversations will probably move a bit faster than they go to this news source. So I work with the media. I know they work hard. I know that, particularly local media, they get the story of the day, and then they're out doing that. They do the best they can. So, great questions.
I can speak loudly.
Okay.
I can hear you, but maybe other people can't. So.
The polls keep indicating, both Republicans and Democrats, they keep using this phrase that the country's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And I, for the life of me, can't figure out what that means or what people think the right direction is. Do you have any insight in that? The economy since 2009 is doing so much better in so many different ways. There are some people who got left behind, but that often happens when there's structural change in the economy.
Sure.
And Donald Trump's answer is, I'm going to make America great again, but I don't know what that means either. But do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, no, I know. Right direction, wrong direction. And again, you'd have to really parse who you're talking to. And some of it's economic, you're right. Some of it's they're worried about the economy. One of the interesting things is that if you ask Democrats and Republicans about race relations, Republicans think that race relations are the worst that they've had in their entire lifetime. You see, they see movements like Black Lives Matter as a threat, not an opportunity for change. So there's a lot there that makes people say, I think the country's going one way or another. Progressives, liberal progressives, don't feel that enough change has happened. That here they had the President of the United States, Barack Obama, could have done so much more, and they're frustrated sometimes that he did less than they anticipated. And this often happens as well. That's one of the reasons people are in the Republican Party supporting Trump, because here you gave the House and then you gave the Senate to the Republicans, and what happened? They still had the Affordable Care Act, they still had all the things that they disliked, and it didn't change. So you're right, you have to be careful about that. All that really tells us is that on the day they took the poll, the person that they asked felt troubled. And if you see a pattern of that over time, that means the politicians aren't doing enough to communicate effectively. Not spin, but to talk to people. Figure out what they're anxious about. I think a lot of people are voting not because bad things have happened, but again, because they fear bad things will happen. I think we live in a time in which people seem alarmed by a lot of things. We can change that through dialogue, just to ease their fears. Like you said, well, look at the long term. Look at in the 90s when people were losing their jobs, right? I mean, we were going through deindustrialization. We were going through globalization. It is not fair. The economy does not treat us fairly. The government can come up with policies to soften the land, and they maybe need to do more of that.
I'd like to return as a follow-up to the gentleman's question at the end of this row with regard to the Trump strategy, the bigotry and appealing to that. There's a good body of literature that I'm sure you're familiar with regard to Republican strategy over the last 50-odd years. Call it Southern Strategy, or Law and Order, Reagan's approach, Willie Horton. You know, it's long-standing dog whistle approach to appealing to a particular constituency. Isn't it really just a case that Trump has kind of taken that strategy and brought it out of the closet, out from behind the dog whistle, and then been more basically forthright about it?
To some extent, what Trump has done is the chickens have come home to roost in the Republican Party, in the sense that there has been always this noise coming from the Republican Party. But I do take serious a document that the Republicans wrote after the 2012 election.
The autopsy?
Yeah, that they looked very serious and said, look, our base is getting older and whiter, and the number of white people in this country is going to the percentage is going to decline. We need to do more outreach. And that was the goal, even of people like Paul Ryan, to come up with an economic plan that would reach the disenfranchised, right? Not to divide us by race or religion or other issues, but to try to figure out a way to reach out to those individuals who might be coming into the middle class or had aspirations for the middle class. Look, the Republican Party has always been well in the middle class. It is generally the party of those that have been successful so far in the system that exists, and therefore very comfortable and not particularly responsive to change. So increasing the tent, making the big tent, exactly, I take that serious. So I think there were people in the Republican Party who did not want this message, this voice. In some ways, though, this was the problem Democrats faced in the 1960s, when those same voices in the Solid South were arguing against civil rights. And then when the Democrats passed civil rights, they left the Democratic Party slowly but surely and entered into the Republican Party. Republicans wanted to change some of that. Well, some Republicans wanted to change that. Others obviously just want to live off what they've got. But that body's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So if that's Donald Trump's strategy, then his strategy is to turn the Republicans into the Whig Party of the 1850s, which eventually just disappeared. They had some local elections where people got elected, but nationally that political party just ended and the Republicans took over. Who knows, maybe it's the rise of the Libertarians. Get used to the smell of burning leaves then.
So, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm trying to formulate this